Today we're going to check out one of the biggest busts in WWE history. This was a TNA star making the jump up north to the WWE in 2008. This wasn't happening every week. It's not like these days where the Motor City Machine Guns can just come on the main roster and win the tag titles, which is awesome. Back in the day, it was really hard for stars with prior success in other companies to even be given a shot in WWE. As Vince McMahon always said, WWE doesn't sign stars, we make stars. And that mantra would take its effect, sometimes for the better, often for the worse. But the potential of the Wildcat Chris Harris was too undeniable. In 2007, Harris had split from his longtime partner James Storm as part of America's Most Wanted. The team is possibly the greatest team in TNA history. A lot of people point to the aforementioned Motor City Machine Guns, as well as their main rivals Beer Money, which featured James Storm as well. But AMW with Harris and Storm in the early days of TNA were easily the greatest tag team in North America at the time. But all good things must come to an end, and both had singles potential, especially Chris Harris. Now, this may sound surprising given hindsight and seeing the success of his partner Cowboy James Storm, but Chris Harris was the guy. If there has to be an A side and a B side to a tag team, Harris was on the A side. And that's not discrediting James Storm. This guy was a beast. He was really everything WWE would be looking for. So it made a lot of sense that they came calling by the time he was released from his contract. He started feuding with Black Reign in TNA, which is the death of any character, before being released on January 11th, 2008. It only took a couple weeks, and on January 29th, he was signed to the WWE. The signing made some news and was met with some excitement, online and internally within the WWE. As weeks went on, Harris noticed a lack of direction or care for his character. What was seemingly an acquisition with a plan was now just another guy in the locker room. He would make his dark match debut, pinning Shelton Benjamin on March 11th, but he wouldn't make television until July 8th on ECW. Now, of course, this isn't the ECW of the 90s, this is WWECW, as commonly referred to, as if that wasn't evident from them debuting Chris Harris. No offense to Chris Harris, but in what world does he match the Land of Extreme? Which is what they dubbed ECW as. It's not like they were shying away from the previous identity that much. Anyway, Chris Harris was here, or excuse me, Braden Walker. So he got the typical name change that's pretty much expected when transitioning to the WWE. He's now Braden Walker. And the reason I know that is because he said it himself. Teddy Long and Tiffany, or Taryn Terrell in TNA, were backstage discussing the new Superstar Initiative on ECW. Meanwhile, Armando Alejandro Esperada, I tried to roll my R's. He was asking for his job back. I guess he got fired. But an opportunity came knocking, literally, when Chris Harris approached him in a black singlet. Or should I say Braden Walker, his new name, which he introduced through a knock-knock joke. I love that Vince McMahon takes the center image of this frame. Only he could come up with something so riveting for a WWE debut. Also, is that Martin Luther King? What is going on here? Anyway, Braden Walker says he's gonna knock Estrada's brains out, and they stare at each other intensely for what feels like 2 minutes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Braden Walker. And I'm gonna knock your brains out.
But up next, it's Braden Walker's debut, and Estrada enters first to a banger of a theme song and no heat whatsoever. Followed by Braden Walker giving him a run for his money with this entrance. Seriously, I can't think of a more boring presentation of Chris Harris. I'm not saying he's The Rock, but when he came out in TNA, there was a lot more fanfare than this. Coming out to country stock music looking like a jobber. The match begins and it instantly just feels off. Chris Harris in TNA wrestled with so much energy. He was one of those no-wasted movement guys, pretty flashy at times for a guy his size, and was a strong natural babyface. Unfortunately, the creative minds in charge of Braden Walker missed all of this. Harris went on to express frustration over the limitations he felt in a WWE ring. He didn't feel like he could be himself, and that was pretty evident early on. It doesn't even feel like the same guy that they signed from TNA. And that's probably due to a number of factors. Regardless, this debut match was very boring, and Estrada didn't exactly help. Not a lot of dynamic heat from Estrada here, which honestly I haven't seen many Estrada matches in my lifetime. But this didn't make me want to. By the time Braden Walker was starting his comeback, the crowd was already lost. And if you're watching at home, you've got Mike Adamle trying to put him over. Yeah, that's not gonna work.
His name is Jeff Hardy.
His new finish is a crossbody, or what's supposed to be a crossbody. He kind of just leaps into the air like a wildcat. Regardless, Braden Walker was victorious in his WWE debut. Not everyone can say that. Like any good WWE debut, Braden Walker would disappear for about a month. He did have this weird backstage segment where he approached Matt Hardy saying he's got his back against Colin Delaney, who Matt Hardy described as a real wild cat. He had to have done that on purpose, right? Anyway, Braden Walker introduced himself to Matt Hardy, they shook hands, and presumably it made plans for their TNA alliance 3 years later. But almost exactly a month after his debut, Braden Walker was back, and he was in action next. And hey, he updated his gear. I don't really know what it is, but it's better, I guess. We come back from commercial break, and Braden Walker is making his entrance. Although it's hard to notice aside from this horrible theme song. There's a moment where Braden Walker just stands at the top of the entranceway with his hands on his hips. You gotta believe he's just questioning what is happening here. How did it all go downhill so fast? This is the WWE dream? But Estrada wasn't in his way tonight. It was James Curtis, better known as KC James. And I just can't get over how pissed Braden Walker looks. This is one of the least motivated WWE appearances I've ever seen, and I can't blame him. What is going on here? Why are we wasting TV time, money, resources, just everything? Oh, also, we have a new commentary team. Matt Stryker and Todd Grisham. Stryker starts talking about James Curtis being a boating and nautical man. He questions if James Curtis can sail the seas of Braden Walker here. What does that even mean? This match was better than the Estrada one, but not by that much. Braden Walker has a new finish, a half-hearted fisherman suplex. I guess it's better than the flying body. Matt Stryker says Braden Walker made an impact here, which is a better play on words than earlier, but it's also a lie. Unless he's talking about a negative impact, because this was his last match in the WWE. He was actually released 2 days later. So what went wrong? I mean, this guy looked like a future world champion not that long ago. There's a reason he was signed to the WWE in a time where these guys weren't getting signed to the WWE. Harris claims he was repeatedly told he basically couldn't be himself. He couldn't do the moves that brought him to the dance, so why hire him? Why hire him if you have no plan for him whatsoever? You're recognizing his talents, but there wasn't a real opportunity granted here. Nothing he could prepare for. He spent 6 years building up a reputation in TNA, all for it to end with a knock-knock joke. If we rewind to 2007 and take a look at Slammiversary, Harris shined in the King of the Mountain match, working with absolute legends in pro wrestling. But from that point on, it was just completely downhill. And that Black Rain program I mentioned was not good. Harris was comfortable in TNA far too long and made the natural evolution to heading the WWE. It didn't take long for this discomfort to be met with reality, and Harris realized it wasn't a good move for his career. I think everyone could see that. Well, that wasn't a fulfilling run for Chris Harris, but don't worry, there would be moments of redemption. On May 12, 2011, Chris Harris returned to TNA. As a member of Immortal, he was introduced by Matt Hardy, who would be his tag partner for the TNA World Tag Team titles against Harris's former AMW ally, James Storm, and Robert Roode. May 15th at Sacrifice, this came to a fruition, and Harris looked more like Braden Walker than the Wildcat of old.
Also, I think part of the mind games. Bust out the old AMW gear.
His career was cursed. Was his WWE run so bad that it just ruined the career of someone that could have been a world champion? Well, this is pro wrestling, and time heals all wounds. That's why on March 30th, 2021, on an episode of Impact, Chris Harris made his second return to TNA. He appeared ringside for James Storm's 1000th match in the company and aided him in defeating Eric Young. It was great to just see Chris Harris back on TV and happy to be doing what he's doing. But it doesn't end there. In June of 2022 at Slammiversary, America's Most Wanted came to ringside to celebrate with the Briscoes and the Good Brothers. They shared beers. What timeline is this? This is awesome. And for the grand finale, July 1st, 2022, America's Most Wanted reunited in a match, teaming with the Good Brothers and Heath at Against All Odds. Chris Harris had one last shot in the spotlight, and he nailed it. His good friend Jeff Jarrett often quoted Toby Keith, "I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was." On July 1st, 2022, Braden Walker was gone, and Chris Harris was etched into wrestling history.